Hello, and welcome to another edition of On the Hill Media. I'm Fosi Weston, and today our candidate from District 45, candidate for delegate, Mr. Jamaal Simpson. How you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing quite well. Can you first tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I decided to run this race because I've been living in the city for a long time. I'm 26 years old, and I've just seen things get considerably worse and want to do something about it. All my life, I've always been looking at ways that I can help people. I've always been looking at ways to help better myself. When I was in school, I was in the ROTC program. I graduated as valedictorian in my class and went to the Marine Corps for a little bit. And I also, attended school. A lot of the jobs that I have been people oriented. I worked in security to help stop the bad guys from stealing stuff.
Right.
I also worked in the tourism department, where I dealt with people from various walks of life and helped them to cater to their needs and everything like that. So for me to run this race, I think I already have enough background dealing with people to understand what it is that we need to do to help turn the state around.
Right. Well, if elected, what do you plan to do when you get in office?
When I get in office, there are three main things that I want to hit on. The first is unemployment. In this job market, it's very, very tough to find a job.
Right.
And particularly with black jobs coming to the northeast portion of the state, and this district being the closest district in Baltimore City, we want to be able to start to create opportunities for people in this district, the 45th district, to be able to tap into some of those black jobs, to be able to have the state invest in their small businesses so that they can get some of the contracts that we're awarding to contractors from other states right now. Another thing that I want to tackle is education.
Right.
Baltimore City hasn't had a new school built since 1999, and before that it was around 1974 since the last high school was built.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because having gone through the school system, I understand what it is to go through a building when there's no heating or air conditioning, where the books that we use are hand-me-downs from decades. When it's just a hard learning environment. And what we need to do is create better schools for children to go to, whether we're building new schools or we're completely renovating schools, in order to make the learning environments interesting, to get new science equipment for the students, get new physical ed equipment, make sure that the classrooms are comfortable, get state-of-the-art electronics. All that kind of thing is what we need, and it's just that funding has shifted away from Baltimore City.
Right.
And we want to, when I go to Annapolis, I want to try to make it so that we get those dollars to come back. And I understand that the budget is a very important process to look at for that. But one thing we have to do is we need to reappropriate funds from what they were originally created for. And use them for what they need to be used for.
Right.
And when I say that, I talk about, the Maryland State Lottery, Slots Commission and everything, which was originally created for funding education, but now it's funding the Maryland Stadium Authority.
Right.
And it's just that, people aren't going to be able to buy tickets to these football games and baseball games and such if they're not able to compete in the job market based off of their education. And lastly, one of the things that I want to touch on is crime. I believe that in investing in programs that are going to help rehabilitate people when they get out of prison, both adults and juveniles, because the juvenile justice system kind of goes unattended. And if we begin to rehabilitate these people, find jobs, homes, and everything for them when they get out, I believe that it would help to make crime go down, because when people have their time occupied, they're not out committing any crimes. But the more that we sit here and we just pretend that the society is going to accept them for who they are, people all know that there's a brand put on criminals even after they've served their time, and I don't think that is right. If they serve their time, we should treat them just as a new citizen coming in, and allow them to have the same opportunities. And that's one of the things that I want to work on to help decrease crime in the city.
Now, in the next legislation year, the state of Maryland has to make $1 billion in budget cuts. What are your ideas to make this successful?
I believe that we have to look into the programs that that the state is running, but is really getting no use, and also look at administration in the state. I believe that we're top heavy in administration, and that, you know, some of these positions can be eliminated to either help balance the budget or to help make more job opportunities for people on a lower level. I believe that, again, when it deals with the budget, reappropriation is the main key there. When we start to look into these programs, we start to look into our state audits, and we say, okay, well, this program we're not really getting much emphasis in, but it's something that we can afford to cut. Instead of cutting, I don't believe that we should cut services for the constituents that are voting people into Annapolis every year. You know, when it comes to, you know, social services, unemployment insurance, education. You know, all of those things should not be touched. But when we look at it, and one thing that I'm an advocate for too is the legislation taking a pay cut. So many years we've voted in Annapolis to, you know, take a pay raise every year, even in Congress, take a pay raise. But when have they ever voted to take a pay cut? And it doesn't have to be anything severe, but anything would help the budget.
Right. You know, coming from Washington, we have a Go Green initiative. What are some of your ideas of getting some of your local constituents on that?
I believe one big thing that's going on in Baltimore City right now is that they've cut trash collection down to 1 day. And everybody's devastated about that. But I believe that if we get a push for more recycling pickup days and less trash days, I think that that would motivate the citizens of Baltimore to really get involved. But one thing that we have to do is that we have to educate them. I think that the state needs to, you know, have more programs to educate the people about the responsibility of going green and what our responsibilities as human beings are to this planet. So I think that once we begin to educate people, once we begin to give them more options to go green, I think, and show them the benefits of going green, how it saves on energy costs and everything like that, I believe that the citizens will hop on board.
Right. Now, also, we have problems with regulation this year. We have these billion-dollar companies that come in here and destroy our ecosystem. What are your ideas to protecting our natural resources here in Maryland?
Well, I believe that these big companies should be held accountable. I believe that we need to start to regulate the industry, whereas we can hold them to standards, and they don't have to be federal standards. They could be our state standards to let these businesses know, when you come to Maryland, we're a green state, and these are the regulations that you have to follow in order to be in accordance, or you stand to be fined, or you stand to have your taxes raised or whatever. Which does two things. It allows businesses to start to go green. It allows us to declare our stance on what we want for the businesses when they come here, and it also creates revenue for the ones that don't want to be in line with our regulations. Right.
Now let's jump on education. I know you mentioned it earlier. We have schools here that are in the top 10 in the nation when it comes to our education, but we also have schools in the bottom 10. What do we need to do to improve this?
I think that Baltimore, the state of Maryland needs to revamp how they fund the different counties in the city of Baltimore. When we start to pay attention to the funding and where it's going and what we can do to help the jurisdictions with who receive lower amounts of funding, then we can begin to bring the states to a level median. And the idea is not to bring the top 10 schools down, but it's to bring the lower 10 schools up.
Right.
And we do that by shifting where we're sending our funding. If we know that there are some jurisdictions that need it more than others, then we need to pay attention to that and not necessarily look at social status, because as much as we like to turn a blind eye to it, that's something that plays into it. When you look at counties that receive more funding for schools, like Montgomery County, Cecil County, these are areas where people happen to have higher income. And then you look at the lower funded areas such as Baltimore City, parts of Prince George's County, and these are the people who have lower income. And it's just that we need to start to make decisions in Annapolis, not based off of social class, but based off of what's really best for the future of Maryland. It's so important because that goes into, as Maryland tries to separate itself from the surrounding states as far as the economy goes, the more educated the state is, the better the economy will have. And so when you deal with school districts that are struggling, we need to, and another bill is that they tried to pass was to shift funding for teachers' pensions over to local jurisdictions, which I'm strongly against. It would devastate school districts such as the Baltimore City School District that's already struggling. I believe that we need to go ahead, take care of our teachers, build new schools, and we'll see those numbers come up.
Right. Mr. Simpson, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you a lot.
Now, for more information about Jamaal Simpson, please visit his website at jamalsimpson.com. And for all other information, please visit our website, onthehillmedia.com.